Gang, I don't want you to think that it has a split personality disorder, but ISE, the Identity Service Engine, has multiple personas. In other words, when I am installing this, I can install one or more personas to describe the functionality, what it's actually going to do on that box. What that means is I can separate out box by box different responsibilities to say I want processing overhead for administration, for example, to be separated out from other workloads that we have. So let's take a look at the different workloads, the different personas or nodes that we can define for an ISE environment. The first one's pretty straightforward, administration node. When you connect to an administration mode, you're an administrator trying to manage it. You're going to add or remove or modify policies. This is where all that happens. All the changes happen on the administration node. Then you've got the service node. The service node is going to be what actually applies those changes. So when I've got a client that's connecting to an access point that is going through a wireless LAN controller that then says we've got to actually validate this through Radius, well, they're going to connect to the policy service node of ISE. This is really what we think of as ISE. This is the policy checker right here. And then it's going to respond back, and then hopefully we'll get access. Now, to keep track of what's going on, you have the monitoring and troubleshooting node. This guy is keeping track of all the syslog information as well as, being able to report on if interfaces are up or down, things like that. So this is the monitoring and troubleshooting node. Notice that you can keep that separate from where the actual events are occurring, which is good because if this thing goes down, we could still, do a little diagnostic and say, okay, what's going on over here? Then you've got your inline posture node. This is a very special situation. So let's imagine I've got a client that's connecting to an access point that's connecting to a wireless LAN controller, and what they want to get connected to is over here, right? We need to, just like we looked at before, provide access to the policy service node. The problem is that this is all in one network, and what we really need to do is get across a VPN connection to the remote network. And then on the other side of that VPN connection, gain access to the Radius server. So the way that we provide that is usually through the use of an inline posture node, which functions as a Radius proxy in this case. So I'll connect to we'll kind of work our way up to this point, then we'll get connected to the Radius proxy, the IPN, which then connects to the policy service node, which still does its job, and then that information goes back to the inline posture node, which basically provides the representative of a secure network in an insecure environment on the other side of a wide area network. That's its job. So again, let's just take another recap here, kind of looking at it end to end. User wants to log in. They connect to an access point. The access point is an example of a network access device, but we could be talking about switches as well, because they can also use these same type of connections. Again, that can apply to VPN connections in the same way. So access layer device, it's going to enforce the policy. In the end, it's up to the access point to listen to the instructions given to it by a higher power and say, whoa, you do or you don't have access. But the way it gets that set of instructions is by contacting the policy service node. So it can do that itself, or more likely it'll do that through a wireless LAN controller. But this is going to be a Radius access from the network access device to the policy service node. Policy service node performing Radius profiling, web authentication, posturing, sponsoring our portal client provisioning. All of these elements are being done here. A ton of work, lots of processing. Now, how did it get those rules? Well, the policy administration node, an admin connected and managed that. That's where they set up all the rules and groups and everything else. And that's all defined in a database. So again, when a user connects and we're validating, can this guy log in? What are the policies? It's pulling that out of the defined database. So the live communication just occurs between the attached device, the access device, and the policy service node. That's our Radius back and forth. Again, syslog messages from the network access device or the policy service node can be stored here in the monitoring and troubleshooting node of ISE. Again, notice in this case, we don't see the use of this last guy right here, the inline posture node. So that's the exception of the rule. Standalone node only used when you need a representative in a remote network that you don't have access to. But the whole point is I have to get to that network to check to see if I can have access to the network. So this is going to provide that representation, that kind of bouncer at the front door. All right, so it's not schizophrenic, it's not multiple personality, it's just 4 personas. So you can divide the workload and assign responsibilities where it makes the most sense.